genres. There are a lot of them, and it's very easy to get intimidated by the sheer amount of them. Given the massive number of them that there are, it's quite easy for a lot of people to just decide to write one genre, like exclusively writing in science fiction, exclusively writing in fantasy, exclusively writing thrillers, only writing in one genre for one age group for your entire writing career. Now, while there are some merits to doing this, I personally don't feel like it's the way to write. I personally feel like you should write in as many genres as you possibly can. And I feel like that if you go outside your comfort zone in terms of writing genres, it is a very good thing to do, and it will greatly improve your writing. I mean, me for instance, before I was published, I was very used to writing high fantasy and science fiction, and not really anything else. Just sci-fi and fantasy. That was all I did. But with the first book I published, Ruby Rain, I decided to write crime. Was that a good thing? Was that a bad thing? Well, I'll let you read it and decide. But to me, I feel like it was a very good thing to do. Because the more genres you write in, the better your writing becomes. And then there's the whole point of, is there any such thing as a book which is exclusively just one genre? Like, is there such a thing as a book that is just fantasy and has no other elements in it? I mean, if we look at the Inheritance Cycle, for example, it is fantasy, yes, but there are romance subplots in it. There are political subplots in it. You can just write with one genre, but it makes it stilted and very not necessarily what people want to read. Like, if you write sci-fi and you only write it as a sci-fi and you don't add any like dystopian or utopian layers to it, will it interest people? My argument would be it's a lot more interesting to write one book that combines a lot of different genres than many books that are all separate genres. Because if you write them all separately, you don't get an impression of how to make stories interesting, how to make them real, even, or human. Like, you don't just write. And also the whole point about age groups, you shouldn't just write for one age group, ever, because the chances are your readers are gonna age, and they might still be interested in you when they're older. So if you're just a YA writer right now, maybe consider writing adult fiction later on. Or maybe even consider writing children's fiction, so that those young adults, when they become people in the young adult demographic, when they become old enough to have kids of their own, they can read those stories to them and foster a new interest in reading. Because just one genre, to me, it doesn't necessarily cut it. And for me personally, I want to write in as many different genres as I possibly can. And I want to do that because I know it will help me write. I've seen it with my own writing. After writing romance for the first time, I had a better understanding of how to write romance, obviously, but I also had a better understanding of how to write emotion and emotional scenes. So it doesn't just help you write with that specific genre, it helps you to write themes within other books. Like, if you can't write romance in terms of something with a romantic subplot, how do you plan on making it believable that this romance is happening? Because if you'd never written romance before, how do you know how to do it? How do you know how to make a subplot about romance interesting? My argument is that you wouldn't be able to. But I'm not saying that you should not specialize. I'd say that specializing is a very good thing for some people. If you want to write, if you have a dedicated fan base and they all like what you're currently writing, as the saying goes, don't fix what isn't broken. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't experiment. Because who knows? You might write something else that other people like. And there's also the point that a lot of really famous authors currently don't just write, that exist in the current, that are still alive now. They don't just write in one genre. And a lot of authors throughout history have not just written in one genre. And Anthony Horowitz, who's well known for writing children's thrillers, he's also written adult mysteries. Magpie Murders is one of my favourite books. He wrote that outside of what many people would consider, or many people around my age would consider to be his norm of children's books. Because that book isn't for kids. No, it's very much not for kids. But it's still a very good story. Now, I'm not saying you should go out of your way to write things very different to what is you. But how do you know if it's not you, if you've never tried to write it? Because you wouldn't. There are many stories I've written that I thought weren't particularly me when I first came up with them, but they turned out to become very me. Well, very much something that I wanted to do. So you should still stick with the ideas you have. But if you get like an idea to write, let's say you get the idea to write a mystery when you're used to writing fantasy, don't immediately disregard it. Think about it for a bit. You just might learn something. Right, thank you for watching. And please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you know when I upload. And please follow me on my Instagram and my Twitter, but especially my Twitter, because that's where I post about these video ideas, so that you can input your opinion on what you think about my topics. Alright, thank you, and goodbye. Right on.